You ever have one of those days where a single sentence flips your world upside down? Mine started with a knock on my garage door and a voice that screamed pure entitlement. You're going to share your gas, right? We're neighbors. That's how my battle with HOA Karen began. It was a scorching Saturday afternoon, and I was refilling my generator after a long power outage. Most of the neighborhood was dark, but thanks to some preparation, I had a few gallons of spare gas stored safely. I was planning to keep my fridge running and maybe charge my phone, nothing fancy. Then came Karen, the self-proclaimed acting president of our HOA. She showed up wearing oversized sunglasses, holding a clipboard, and walking like she owned the street. She pointed at my generator and barked, "You're wasting community resources. Turn it off and hand over the gas. We'll distribute it fairly." I laughed, thinking she was joking. "This isn't the HOA's gas, Karen. It's mine. I paid for it." Her lips curled. "That's not how it works during neighborhood crises. If you're part of this community, you share." When I refused, she crossed her arms. "Fine. I'll call the police. Let's see how you explain hoarding fuel during an emergency." I thought she was bluffing, until she actually pulled out her phone. She dialed 911 right in front of me, her voice loud and dramatic. "Yes, officer. My neighbor is refusing to give gas to the community. He's violating safety codes and threatening residents." I stood there, stunned. My other neighbors peeked from their porches, whispering, watching the drama unfold like it was free entertainment. Within minutes, I heard sirens. Karen smirked and whispered, "You're about to learn what happens when you say no to your HOA president." I couldn't believe it. She really called the cops because I wouldn't give her free gas. As the patrol car stopped in front of my driveway and two officers stepped out, Karen strutted toward them like she'd just saved the town. "Arrest him," she said confidently. "He's endangering the community." One officer raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, for not sharing gas." Karen folded her arms. "Yes, he's hoarding. It's illegal." That's when I realized this wasn't just about gas. Karen wanted control, and she was about to take this battle as far as she could. The officers hadn't even finished stepping out of their cruiser before Karen launched into her speech. She waved her clipboard like evidence in a courtroom, rattling off words such as emergency ordinance, community safety, and HOA authority, as if repeating them enough would make them real. "This man," she said, pointing at me, "is refusing to give fuel to neighbors in need. Under HOA guidelines, he is required to cooperate. I want him arrested for endangering the community." The younger officer blinked. The older one sighed, the kind of sigh that comes from years of dealing with people like Karen. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "can you tell me which law requires a private citizen to give away gasoline?" Karen froze for half a second, then recovered. It's common sense. During emergencies, resources belong to everyone." "That's not a law," the officer replied. She scoffed. "I'm the HOA president. We make the rules here." I finally spoke up. "Officer, this is my gas. I bought it before the outage. I'm not selling it, hoarding it, or threatening anyone. I just said no." Karen whipped her head toward me. "Don't interrupt! You're already in trouble!" The officer shook his head slowly. "Ma'am, refusing to give away personal property is not a crime." That sentence snapped something inside Karen. Her face flushed red, and her voice jumped an octave. "So you're just going to let him get away with it? People are suffering. Kids can't charge their tablets. Seniors can't watch TV." The younger officer tried to stay neutral. "We understand outages are stressful, but that doesn't give anyone the right to demand someone else's fuel." Karen jabbed her finger at my chest. "You're enjoying this. You're selfish. You think you're above the rules." I stayed calm. "I offered to help neighbors earlier today. You demanded everything." That only made her louder. "Lies! He's lying! Arrest him for obstruction or theft or something!" The older officer folded his arms. "Ma'am, continuing to make false accusations could get you into trouble." Her mouth fell open. "Excuse me? Calling 911 to report a non-crime is misuse of emergency services," he said firmly. Karen laughed nervously. "That's ridiculous. I'm protecting the neighborhood." At that moment, two more neighbors stepped forward. One of them, Mrs. Alvarez from across the street, spoke up. "Officer, she came to my house first, demanded gas. When I said no, she threatened to fine me." Another neighbor added, "She said the HOA would seize generators." Karen spun around. "This is a coordinated attack." The officers exchanged a look. The younger one pulled out a notepad. "Ma'am, is it true you threatened residents with fines and police action to take their fuel?" Karen's confidence crumbled. I was enforcing community standards. There are no HOA rules about fuel sharing," the officer said. "And even if there were, HOAs don't have police powers. Karen crossed her arms, but her voice trembled. So what? He just gets to keep everything while the rest of us suffer? The older officer replied, he gets to keep what he legally owns. Then came the line that changed everything. Karen shouted loud enough for the street to hear, if you don't arrest him, I'll report you for negligence. Silence followed. The officer took a step closer. Ma'am, I'm now formally warning you to calm down. Karen didn't. She screamed, arrest him now! And that's when the situation flipped. Completely. The older officer's tone hardened. Ma'am, this is your final warning. Lower your voice and step back. Karen stared at him like he'd just insulted her entire bloodline. For a moment, I thought she might actually listen. Then she did what Karen always does when control slips through her fingers. She doubled down. No, she snapped. I know my rights, and I know his obligations. She jabbed the clipboard toward my generator again. That gas is a hazard. He's running an unapproved machine. It's a fire risk. Arrest him before something explodes. The younger officer glanced at the generator, then at me. Sir, may I inspect it? Of course, I said, stepping aside. He checked the setup carefully. Proper ventilation, approved containers, generator grounded, fire extinguisher nearby. Everything was by the book. He nodded to his partner. It's safe. Karen's jaw clenched. You're lying for him. That was it. The officer straightened. Ma'am, you are now being warned for disorderly conduct. If you continue to interfere, you may be cited. Her face drained of color. You can't do that. I called you. Yes, he replied, and we responded. There was no crime. At this point, you are creating a disturbance. The crowd of neighbors had grown. Phones were out. Whispers filled the street. Karen noticed and panicked. This is harassment, she shouted. You're all against me! She turned to the neighbors. Remember this when your freezers rot. Remember who refused to help you. Mrs. Alvarez crossed her arms. We remember who threatened us. Karen's eyes flicked back to the officers. Fine. If you won't arrest him, I demand you shut off his generator under HOA authority. The younger officer shook his head. HOA authority does not override private property rights or city law. Karen screamed, This is unbelievable! She stepped forward, invading the officer's personal space, waving the clipboard inches from his face. You work for the people. Do your job. The older officer raised his hand. Step back, now. Instead, Karen shoved the clipboard against his chest. Not hard, but enough. The entire street went silent. The officer's voice dropped to ice-cold calm. Ma'am, turn around and put your hands behind your back. Karen laughed. You're joking. He wasn't. As handcuffs came out, Karen's world collapsed in real time. You can't arrest me! I'm the HOA president! The officer replied evenly. Right now, you're someone who ignored repeated warnings. And just like that, the woman who demanded I be arrested became the center of flashing lights and stunned faces. Karen stood there frozen as the reality finally hit her. The handcuffs clicked shut, sharp and final, and every ounce of authority she thought she had vanished in that sound. Her voice cracked instantly. This is a misunderstanding. I was just trying to help the neighborhood. The older officer didn't even look surprised. You were warned multiple times, ma'am. You ignored everyone. As she was guided toward the patrol car, Karen twisted her head toward me, eyes blazing with humiliation and rage. This isn't over, she hissed. I'll sue you. I'll fine you. You'll regret this. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The entire street had seen everything. The younger officer turned to the neighbors and spoke calmly. She's being cited for disorderly conduct and misuse of emergency services. No one else is in trouble. You're free to go about your day. That was the moment the tension broke. Neighbors started talking openly now, no longer whispering. Someone laughed nervously. Someone else shook their head. Mrs. Alvarez walked over to me and said quietly, Thank you for standing your ground. Karen, meanwhile, was still talking non-stop from the back of the cruiser. This is retaliation. I demand to speak to a supervisor. I run this HOA. The officer closed the door. Not today. After the police left, the street felt strangely peaceful. My generator hummed softly, doing exactly what it was meant to do. A few neighbors came by, not to demand anything, but to ask politely if I could spare a little power to charge phones or keep medicine cool. I helped where I could because that was my choice, not a threat. 2 days later, the fallout hit. The HOA board sent an emergency email announcing a temporary leadership change. Karen was removed pending review after multiple complaints surfaced. complaints people had apparently been too afraid to file before. Turns out my incident wasn't the first, just the loudest. A week later, Karen moved out. No goodbye, no apology, just a for sale sign that quietly disappeared one morning. The irony still makes me smile. She called the cops to have me arrested for refusing to give away my property, and ended up losing her authority, her reputation, and her place in the neighborhood. I learned something important that day. Standing your ground doesn't make you selfish. It makes you free. And sometimes, the loudest bullies crumble the fastest when faced with calm, facts, and the truth.